guys, I decided to do a video today going over cooldowns. That's basically cooldowns and how to use them in order to win your lane. So it's very hot today. Kitty is dead from the heat. She's not actually dead, she's just being dramatic. So if that's why I look a bit disheveled. It's extremely hot today and my AC isn't working. So, use cooldowns to win trades, which will win your lane. Top lane tends to be melee versus melee. That makes it much harder to avoid fighting until you have your cooldowns available. In other lanes, you can back off and more readily have all your cooldowns available in every trade. In top lane, you have to use what cooldowns you have available in order to win trades and avoid taking trades when you know you can't win. It's extremely priority, as in the priority of top lane as a whole in trading, is keeping track of these high impact long cooldown abilities like Garen's W, if you see that. Every ability has a cooldown, they go on cooldown. Keeping track of those is important. If Garen runs at me and he uses every single ability, let's say I'm playing Garen here and I run an opponent and I judgment and then I Q, well, I have nothing available. So long as Garen didn't basically have me down to enough HP where he could auto and ignite me to death, I can turn around and use all my abilities and beat the crap out of him. This is actually one of the major reasons why a lot of people lose to Garen in the low ranks, because they don't realize, wait, what if you don't just keep running from him? What if you actually turn to fight him? His Q and his E, they're on a decent cooldown, not a super long cooldown, but a decent cooldown, so you can reasonably keep track of those. But the high priority ability on Garen to keep track of is his W. If he doesn't have his W available, if I use it here, he has no shield, he's got nothing like that. Likewise, if he's used his Q to maybe last hit, or if he used it trying to run at me and I walked away from him, he can't move without his Q. So if you see I'm playing against Garen here, and I'll go over other champions in a second, but if you see I'm playing against Garen, he only has 1 second of movement speed. After that, he runs around slower than your average melee champion. And his Q doesn't go on cooldown until he uses it. If I refresh this real quick here, if Garen uses his Q and I walk away from him and he doesn't get in range, well, it's going to be a long time, right? Like, damn, now this ability is going to have a long timer before he can get in range. It gives me time to poke, and it gives me time to do other stuff. It's on you to try to remember his cooldowns, track his cooldowns, particularly his W, because that's how he really wins trades. And you need to fight back against him when he doesn't have cooldowns, and you don't really want to play into him when he has his cooldowns available. You'd want to either trick them out or use your cooldowns more appropriately. So if I go over a different champion set right now, I can hopefully show you a little bit better how to play against that. Okay, so set. A lot of people ask me, how do you beat set? I'm going to give you guys a generalized anti-set strategy based on using the fact that his cooldowns are a bit longer and a little bit easier to play around if you actually know what's going on. So set has 3 abilities. He's got punch you for damage and a little bit of movement speed. Obviously the haymaker and obviously the stun. Now these two are the important ones. Pretty much every set is going to start with his E. Now the most practical way to stop set from just running you down with his E is to go bone plating. Now bone plating is a 45-second cooldown, but if you use bone plating properly, because set's combo is inevitably going to hit all 3 plates generally, or at the very least it'll hit 2. It means that particularly in the early game, bone plating is going to do a pretty good job at shutting down set from being able to just sort of combo half your health bar away early game. The second important thing here to remember is his W is an 18-second cooldown. Now, that puts a very long duration in between his W's. If Set tries to use W aggressively, now he does have a lot more sustained damage than Garen. When we were looking at Garen, one of the things is that Garen is low sustained damage. Set has pretty good sustained damage, particularly in the early game, so it can be a lot harder to abuse his cooldowns. But if you have a high impact ability, like a counter strike or parry or any of those, if Set's W is on cooldown, and let me show that again, if his W is on cooldown, there's a very long duration where you can screw him up. The second important thing is that, let me refresh the cooldown here. Set's W, you can see here, has a long cast time, and he can't guarantee you get hit by the true damage unless he stuns you into it. So I'll show you that. But the thing is, the stun into W is a 16-second cooldown and an 18-second cooldown. That means, generally speaking, if Set is trying to trade with you without actually using any abilities or by just using his Q, you pretty much will be able to know that he's going to E into a W. You might not like it, but you have to actually play around it, right? So you're going to need to understand that you need to E into, well, that he's going to try to E into W. That means you can't sit in that long trade, and if you're both trading down to half HP, Set wins. Because, okay, he's at half HP, E into W, you're dead. I mean, you might not die, but you're going to take a lot of damage. So you need to avoid that. What we need to do is play against Set in a way that you understand you can take short trades, back off, you can poke him from range. He's a bit slower than your average melee champion. His only movement speed is on his Q. Auto resetting with his Q is the main source of damage. If Set starts in melee of you, so if we look at the difference here, here's him running up with Q. Okay, I mean, that's a good chunk of damage, right? But here's him using his Q as an auto reset. It's a bit more damage, right? So particularly if you let him walk up to you and you're just gonna let him walk up to you, auto reset into a Q, pull into a W after you trade back for damage, you're gonna die. You're gonna die to that 100% of the time. Now, I'm using Set as a good example here because he's one of these champions. Knowing how to play around his cooldowns definitely lets you win. Again, to be clear, he has a lot more sustained damage than your average champion, and sometimes what you need to admit is, okay, Set is just stronger than me early game. He's a stronger early game pick, and maybe I need to give him a little bit of breathing space. Use your bone plating, use your cooldowns defensively, because again, if he queues up into an E, now I mean, can I get the bonus movement speed off having an enemy clone here? I can't. So if he queues forward into an E, he can't hit you with W at this point. Well, at the very least, you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't let him hit him because that's a large cast time. Either you should be able to walk to the sides of it, or you should be able to, at the very least, not take the true damage. There's basically no reason to take that true damage as long as you use his E. So that's generally your game plan against Set. Next up, we have Tahm Kench. Now, Tahm Kench has very long cooldowns with, okay, well, it's not 7? Okay, well, that one gets reduced by 40%. And 3 seconds? Okay, well, what you're going to want to do when you fight against Tahm Kench, he's going to try to W you. And he missed it, but that's okay. And then he's going to auto you, and you know, he's got lots of auto attack damage. He might get hit by the turret, and that's okay because he can use his E here, and his E apparently doesn't really have a cooldown, and then he'll win anyway. So that's how you play against Tahm Kench. Avoid Tahm Kench early game. Everything I just said doesn't apply here. Tahm Kench beats you early game. Just avoid him and try to outscale. That's the joke. That's the joke here. Okay. So, yep, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for blah, blah, blah. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Come back for some more content. Leave feedback. Good or negative feedback does great. Thank you to my Patreon people. Remember, if we can get my Patreon to 500, I said if we get it to 500, I do a balloons video, 20 minutes in duration. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your time. Thank you. I hope this was very helpful.